Recording in progress.
Good morning, honorable members. I think it's that time to start our portfolio committee meeting, where we will be receiving a report, an annual report from Alexkor, and also today we'll also give an opportunity to the organized labor, which we were supposed to have met during the oversight, and unfortunately we could not meet them. They wrote to us seeking an opportunity also to provide their view on the state of the situation and their experiences at Alexkor. Therefore, today will be also, after we receive the report and seek both unions that have requested to make presentation and give an opportunity to them to do so. From there, before we begin, I will ask the secretary, by the way, honorable members, our secretary, Mr. Tisang Mochumi, is not going to be with us today due to a Congress of Nehau, of which is part of the delegation from Parliament. Therefore, we won't be having him. We've got another member seconded by authorities who is Mr. to stand on behalf of Mr. Mochumi, Temkosi. I will ask Temkosi to help us with apologies if he has any at his disposal. Temkosi.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and guests and colleagues. Yes, Chairperson, my name is Nkosi Ngoma. I am Secretary to the Portfolio Committee on Communications, and I also present, analyze, and report for Parliament TV. Chairperson, I have been advised by my colleague, Mrs. Tselem Trika, who is assisting in the committee, that of only one standing apology, that of Mr. Kwankwa, which I'm sure the Chairperson and the committee is aware of. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and looking forward to assisting your committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. Without wasting time, I hope Alexkor CEO is present. I'm trying to browse him here so that we don't waste time. Yeah, I could see that Alexkor is present. Can Alexkor take us through? If it's possible, Deputy Minister or the Minister, I think there is a Deputy Minister present among ourselves, to give his overview before we actually give to the CEO.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to yourself, as well as greetings to the Honorable Committee. I just thought first, let me, for formality's sake, indicate that, as you may be aware, there is running parallel to this meeting, the Select Committee is meeting on some matters to do with ESCOM, and we have then split ourselves between the two meetings. The Minister, I think the Director General as well, are in the Select Committee session. So we formally then present an apology on their behalf. And again, just to say that the team from Alexkor is here. Of course, there's also a team from here at DPE, DDGs. The two of them I've seen have logged in. Maybe in the engagement subsequently, we can be able to come in and let first the Alexkor team talk to the annual report, which is the subject of today. Then we will see in the engagements subsequently. Thank you very much, Chair. With your permission, it's only that the people have logged not with their names per se. Alexkor conference, I don't know who that is. If it could have been clearer, because the CEO is expected. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy President, Deputy Minister. Can we check as to who are those people, and we will request, for the sake of misrepresentation or being ended up with people who are not supposed to form part of this session, can we always try to log in with our names, just put in on our gadget our names, so that we don't create confusion? Because also sometimes we count the quorum on the people who are here as members of parliament. When people log in with the funny names or office names, that will create a lot of confusion. Thank you. CEO, can you take us through?
Good morning, Chair. Can everybody hear me? Unfortunately, I'm in Alexander Bay, so the 3G strength is not so powerful on my phone. So you'll see my name as Conference Alexkor, which is the boardroom that most of you were at. And I'm with Pumzile Tombeni on the other line. She's connecting from Johannesburg. I take it people can hear me. Unfortunately, I can't connect, I can't share on the Zoom platform. And I don't know why, but be that as it may, can I just take us to slide number 2, which is the table of contents?
Sorry, CEO, if I may disturb you. Is it possible to fly the report on the screen? I know we got the reports in front of us, everybody, we were sent report, but it will also be helpful to see it here. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can then.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chairperson. If then the CEO could just assist me to indicate when I should move to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you. I think he is hearing you now. Yeah.
No, thanks. Yeah, I was on slide 2, which was the table of contents, and then we can go straight to slide 4, which is your key focal point. Can everybody hear me? I take it I'm audible enough.
Yes, I assume everybody, I assume, because I hear you loud and clear. I assume everybody does.
Okay, Chair, just to get to the focal point that we have submitted on our annual report, our gross revenue declined from 2019 financial year by 19%, as illustrated on the first point. Much of that we'll come back to later in the discussion. You will see the 48,000 carats that were mined the year before was also down to 28,000. Both of these two factors resulted in a loss of 109 million, which is far better than the previous year. So at this stage, or at that stage, we could say Alexkor was solvent and was faced with liquidity challenges. Sales and marketing was the key focal point if we needed to improve this thing, because both the operation, which is the PSJV, also was facing liquidity challenges. So we had to do a lot of work in terms of sales and marketing and exploration. And when I say exploration, I mean just increasing the knowledge of the mineral or the mineral components at the mine. So you will see at the end, there was a disclaimer from the audit and the reportable irregularity plan, which is currently being implemented after we've sat down with our internal auditors. So I'm going to go on the next slide, which is slide number 5. On the point of governance, the Honorable Minister appointed an administrator on the 3rd of September 2019. And it was a 6-month term that ended in February of 2020. So as a result, the company ended the year, which is March 2020, without an accounting authority. But as of the 31st, the MOI was changed from the ministry, and the CEO was the sole director and was obviously confirmed as well as the accounting authority, as per the remainder of that slide is telling you. So the last point that we're still on is that the company still awaits shareholder feedback on the direction of the company's future role. So now I'm going to get into the business model just to explain how we work things here. For those who don't know, Alexkor is 100% state-owned, and there was a deed of settlement that was signed by the government and the Rachterveld community. After that, there was a mining company that was formed, and it was called Rachterveld Mining Company, which had 49% share in the mining operation. So the PSJV, which is pooling and sharing joint venture, is actually the operational structure, which is unincorporated, and it's governed by deed of settlement, unanimous resolution, which are the two documents that encompass both the Companies Act, the PFMA, and all the laws that are related to running a mining company. As you'll see, excuse me, it is managed by executive team led by the CEO, and then there are each shareholder has got a board representative, which we call it the PSJV board. Next slide. Okay, the business model is mining diamonds on the land, along the rivers, on the beaches, the sea, and northwest along the coast of South Africa. So we intensively here at Alexkor have mining expertise that are looking at creating value and maximizing value to the communities around us. We really focus on unlocking shareholder value while delivering sustainable socioeconomic upliftment for the Rachterveld community and for the region as a whole. So the two, Alexkor and PSJV, are two distinct and separate entities which are supposed to be operating interdependently, but there's a common confusion of, I think, the way people only know PSJV as Alexkor, and that's where we are sitting now. But Alexkor and PSJV are two different entities. The current mining operations are, we've got a low-scale operations on the land, and then we've got medium-scale operations on the land as well. Then we go into our beaches. Then we go into the shallow side of the beaches, the medium and the deep water marine, and that's where we're currently operating. So the other point that we're now trying to put in there is to start promoting the small-scale miners, Next slide. Okay, as the strategy that we want to employ in the land mining, one is to employ or have a partnership with a very large mining contractor on the land, so that we can do both the tailings and the land and increase the mining footprint in the region. The reason we're looking at partnership with a larger mining contractor is that this is a very capital intensive exercise. We have 84 kilometers of the mining footprint, and we think it's only possible that it can be done in partnerships because of the required financial capital at the beginning. The marine mining, we need to start managing it better. All we also need there is to start allocating the service providers who are committed and have got the technology to avoid the weather conditions in the shallow and medium marine. We're also working with other state organizations, in particular the environmental department, to look at how we can operate at the Delta. That on its own is still ongoing and is still at initial stages. The other part that we're looking at is the beneficiation. We are talking to the Northern Cape Department. They've given us the building that used to be owned by a De Beers, where De Beers used to do beneficiation and selling of their diamonds. So we're looking at relocating the sales and marketing activities, which are now falling under Alexkor, back to Kimberley, and in the nearest future set it up the beneficiation plant both at Alexander Bay and in Kimberley. So we were awarded the beneficiation license May last year. We are now negotiating with the state diamond trader for a tender license and trading licenses. As you know, the sales and marketing was insourced with effect from September last year, meaning that Alexkor is now selling their own diamonds and marketing their own diamonds. The initial startup was to the credit of Diamond Export and Exchange Center, the DIG. We work together as two state-owned companies, and I think today we've delivered a very good result, which will be visible in the financial discussion. One of the things that we're looking at is, once you've set up what we call our sales and marketing unit at Kimberley, to start looking at your export licenses and permits so that we can penetrate the markets in Dubai, Antwerp, or Hong Kong. Next slide, thank you. Just to give the overview on the corporate office as well, like I've mentioned already, that the administrator was appointed from September 2019 to February 2020. One of the things that we've also mentioned is the license that we've also carried from the state regulator. No irregular expenditures was identified in this current financial year in discussion. The financial statements were prepared on a going concern basis. I'm now going to give to Phumzile Mlambo, Phumzile Tombeni, to take us on the finances. Phumzile.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pito. I will take you through the financial performance. We'll start to look on the financial performance of the PSJV, where we had a decline on the revenue of 18.7%. And this was largely due to the decline in the carats production. And because of the IMDSA contract as well, being unable to produce last year. And we've had a carat production of 28,896 for the year of 2020, which was a drop down from the 48,127 carats in the prior year. And moving on to the next slide. We have experienced a comprehensive loss of 190 for 2020. And this was due to the impairment of the expiration of assets amounting to 186 million. And there were no capital expenditure which were incurred on the expiration. And we had a 6.4 million spent on the corporate and social investment and the social and labor plan and the education for the financial year. There was also a decline on the employee cost because of the retrenchments that have happened from 91 million to 77 million. And the net cash at the end of the year was sitting at 16.5 versus the 5.2 that we had in 2019 in the PSJV. Moving forward. Proceeding to the next slide.
I am on the next slide. You just spoke to the previous slide. I'm on the financial performance overview, PSJV, where it talks to personnel costs, comprehensive income, and cash generation and liquidity.
Okay, thank you.
I think, sorry, Chair, through you. I think that slide is the same as slide 16, so we can move to slide number 18 or 19.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, operational performance. Thank you, Phumzile.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Pito.
Yes,
okay,
Chair, through you, I can start to take it again from here, Chair. The plan here was to do, we wanted to plan 60,000 for 2020, but like most of our colleagues, we didn't anticipate COVID. So what happened actually, the trajectories for moving from 50,000 carats to 60,000 carats were there, but we saw, and we had Mam Tombeni saying, on the marine, IMDC did not come to mind. That was duly because of the COVID pandemic that had us, and then we obviously had to relook at the whole plan. Now, having said that, we went and conservative as we can be, said we're hoping we don't get into another pandemic, but we can try to go back to the 50,000 carats for this financial year that we're talking in, because should nothing happen, we should be able to do what we've been normally doing. Getting to the next slide is just the illustration of carats production in the last couple of years, showing you where we've been, and you'll see that the spike people always ask about is when we had the big boats in the water, and apparently the weather was great, and then we were able to mine more than 160,000 carats. Thank you. Next slide. We're gonna go back to the slide number 23. Thank you, Mr. Teming. So overall performance against the objectives of that financial year in review, we achieved 100% operational cash bow of 6 million against the target of 0. And just to explain why the target was great is because we were coming from a financial situation that was very, very difficult. And then the rental income that was collected, we targeted 80%. Like I've already explained, because of the COVID pandemic, most people came to us saying they cannot afford, or we had to do some kind of a restructuring so that we can collect as much as we could collect. And then we also determined the optimal warehousing structures of our marine assets. So the restructuring was done as part of 2021 as per mandate of the current board members. So what we're looking at is to start having a proper plan for the marine assets and the marine mining footprint going forward. Rehabilitation plan was executed substantially. Again, we would have done more if there wasn't the COVID-19, but the work that will be undertaken was undertaken, and we're hoping that we're going to continue with the rehabilitation that is supposed to be done by Alexkor, which we call legacy rehabilitation. Black-owned and Black women-owned procurement targets were achieved, even though they are not comparable to the other big companies. But for the area that we are in, I think it was a good start. Sorry, next slide. Yeah, the PSJV predetermined objectives. I've mentioned before the weather. It was obviously the weather and the financial constraints that are impacting the operations negatively. The carrots we've mentioned, again, I'm going to allude to the COVID pandemic. And then your EBITDA margin was not achieved. We were targeting to achieve around 11%. We ended up at 5%. Because of the financial conditions we found ourselves in, most of the exploration was suspended in the Maize Flag area. When it comes to safety, there was no fatalities or reportable incidents in the financial year. We are still targeting to continue with our artisan trainee. Obviously, that will depend on when in that period, the expenditure for that thing was obviously limited. That's why our CSR and training programs was limited to 6.4 million. The other procurement targets basically were negatively impacted as a cost-saving initiatives and cash constraints and the pandemic itself. So we couldn't achieve most of the things. I'm going to ask Phumzile to also just explain the profit and loss for us. Chair, thank you. Over to you, Phumzile.
Okay. So in the year of 2020, we've had a revenue of 170, but we ended up with a loss of 109, and this was due to the impairment that is sitting on the other operational expense of the 186 million that I've explained earlier. But this is much better than the loss of the prior year of 2019, which was sitting on 150 million loss. And if we can proceed to the next slide. I think this is showing the revenues over the period of 5 years, and with the spike being the highest in 2017, as Mr. Pitso has explained that it was a good year because of the boats and the carrots that were produced in that year. And if we move over to the next slide, the next slide is showing the finance income that we've made from the monies that are kept into the rehabilitation trust, which currently it's sitting at 209 million. So this is as a result of the investment in the funding in those accounts. And then this is the cost of sale, which is mainly made up of the cost, the monies that are paid to the contractors. Moving on to the next slide. I think the next slide is showing the profit and loss over the period of 5 years. And moving over to the next slide, this is the cash flow statement. Thank you. This is the cash flow statement for the year. We ended up with a cash flow of 305 million, with the main amount coming from the investment that we have in the trust, which is the 185 million. And the other amount will be small amounts that are coming from the government grant reserves and the MFTF funds. And this is a slide just showing the cash that we have over the period of 5 years. We can move over to the slide. There were no irregular expenditure for the current year, and we only had fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 1.4 million, which was mainly due to penalties of not paying on time certain suppliers. I think it was mainly ESCOM. And the irregular expenditure that we're seeing in 2020 is a carryover of the irregular expenditure which were experienced in 2017. And most of the irregular expenditure were condoned during the financial year. And we have no other irregular expenditure as to date. The next slide is talking to the government funded obligation. We started with an opening balance at the beginning of the year, sitting at 11.6 million, and with the closing balance at 12.4 million. And the difference is due to the interest that we've incurred, because these are funds which are ring fence. These are funds which are ring fence, the government funds and the MTEF funds and the funds in the rehabilitation trust. Okay, moving over to the next slide. Okay, the company does not have any borrowings at the moment, and there were no dividends declared or paid for the year. Moving over to the next slide. Okay, in terms of the audit findings, the audit opinion that we've had for the year, it's a disclaimer opinion, and this is due to the 5 points, which I will take you through. The going concern assumption, the SOC has faced some financial distress and liquidity challenges, but the company is currently overcoming that. and we are seeing a profit in the coming financial year for 2021. And then in terms of the non-compliance with the key laws and regulation, it was due to the VAT payee and income tax and royalty tax that were not up to date, but we have since submitted and paid, and all the taxes are up to date currently. And about the weaknesses in financial controls, we have implemented a remedial plan to ensure that there's good progress in correcting the weaknesses in the financial controls. And about the environmental rehabilitation, that's a big item. So there is implementations at the moment where a competent report for the exploration asset is being implemented, and action has been taken into control and is expected to be completed by 31st March 2022. And then about the lack of proper governance and oversight, the company is waiting to hear from the shareholders on that regard. Then moving further to the next slide. The future overlook, the handover of the township is in progress. We are currently in talks with the municipality and Eskom in terms of moving the electricity and the township to the municipality and Eskom. And in terms of the rental collection, I think as Mr. Pito has alluded that it's been tough for most of the people because of the retrenchments, but we are collecting as much as we can. And I just want to talk to the reviewing of mining contracts. I think I will give an opportunity to Lelani and Dion to speak to that.
Thank you, Pumzile. Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to start on the last slide, the self-funding to finance capital program is basically how we explain it is we're not going to ask money from the government, but as we get revenue from the sales streams, we're going to take money and improve all the capital equipment that most of the parliamentary community members saw, so that it can come back to the conditions that can be usable. And then the mining contracts, we have around 170 mining contracts, of which 30% of those contracts are active. So what we're now doing is, if the people are not active, we're canceling the contract. It was a good gesture of giving most of the community members these contracts, but some of the people get the contracts and don't do anything with it. So what we're now trying to do is to trim the contractors to the best performers, the guys who are committed, and the guys who are not in that space. We are now going to take a drastic action so that they can know that either they come to the party or don't come to the party. And I think that's it from the presentation, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, CEO. And now, honorable members, I was checking here if Solidarity and the National Union of Mine Workers are already in the house, so that we give them an opportunity, or we start engaging the report if they are not here yet. Can I check Solidarity? Are you here? Is representative of Solidarity already logged in? No. Let me check. The National Union of Mine Workers. Are you?
Yeah,
in?
good morning. Good morning, Chair. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Then let us take you. If you're ready, go ahead, make your presentation. These are the members of Parliament, the Portfolio Committee for Public Enterprise. We just listened to Alexkor presentation. As you requested also to present your own version of understanding of issues in the mine.
Yeah, Chair, thank you very much, Chairperson of the committee, and greetings to the members of the committee. I'm not sure, Chair, if you are in a position of the presentation from the National Union of Mine Workers. From onset, Chairperson, I must indicate that the sole intent of our presence and our presentation is a hope and a sincere hope that the Portfolio Committee will be able to assist in resolving that are clouding and confronting the members of the NUM. And our major issue as the workers is the fact that the PSJV board does not correct, and that the decisions that they are making are null and void, Chairperson. But I will go to the presentation, Chairperson, and highlight a number of points that we have prepared, starting with giving you the background, Chairperson, and as well as our workers' profile and some of the challenges that we are having. Chairperson, from onset, I understand that the Portfolio Committee did visit the community where Alexkor is located. And as you would understand, that the socio-economic activity of the Richardsveld community is totally and purely dependent on the mining activities in the area of diamond and as well as the mining. And we've had a number of companies there. One of those was Transex, which was also largely organized by the National Union of Mine Workers. And the Alexkor that we are busy talking on today, and as well as Blue Thrift. All these companies, Chairperson, over the last 24 months have had major retrenchments, and of particular concern and interest is the number of retrenchments that we have seen at Alexkor. And with that being the case, the economic activity diminishing in those areas, our people are left to languish in pain and as well as in poverty, Comrade Chairperson. And we're hoping that the communities that are surrounding, or the surrounding communities that have been neglected in the areas of Sandreef, Extinfontein, Port Nolot, Alexander Bay and surroundings will be something that will be considered, because their only hope now lies in the hands of this committee, because as the National Union of Mine Workers, we have done all we could in saving the jobs of the workers, not for the purpose only of the existence of the National Union of Mine Workers in the area, but for the community to be able to have the necessary faith and love that they ought to have for a black government. As I indicated, Chair, over the past 2 years, consecutively, Alexkor has retrenched over 200 workers. And this mining enterprise has increased and contributed negatively in the ever-growing unemployment rate in South Africa due to its unsustainable nature. And this directly contributes to the dire poverty and the dead socioeconomic conditions of the Richtersveld and surrounding community. And the state to which our workers and as well as the community find themselves are directly or as a result of compromised governance structures in Alexkor, the incompetency of the board, and what we perceive and believe to be the lack of support and monitoring by the Department of Public Enterprise. And coupled with this is the lack of leadership and political will. And we raise this, Chairperson, to you because we have tried to get interventions from the political heads and political arms of the state and as well as the public enterprises. The background on the issue of Alexkor and the Richtersveld community, Chairperson, I believe is something that is at your disposal and that you understand that having successfully lodged the land claim against the state-owned diamond mining company 23 years ago, the land court granted the community the land and mineral rights. The order of the court ruled that Alexkor and Richtersveld must operate within a PSJV, or what you would call a shared equity. And the deed of settlement between the community, Alexkor, and as well as the government stated that there must be pooling of services in joint venture, land restoration, exploration rights. And the deed of settlement, Chair, further stated that the suspensive conditions are for the benefit of both parties and may only be waived by both parties by written agreement between both of them. Now, the pooled operations meant that the prospecting and mining operations conducted by Alexkor and RMC in the joint venture are in full control and overall supervision of the joint venture on the basis set out in the deed of settlement. The PSJV was to independently operate without interference by Alexkor in terms of National Treasury regulations. As I indicated that we were issued with Section 189 notice around May 2019, on the 13th of May 2019, which affected 193 jobs and by PSJV. And Alexkor issued its own Section 189 notice on the 30th of May 2019, which affected about 45 jobs. The whole main office was retrenched except for the CEO, who's assuming the duties of the chairperson of the board. And as far as the NUM is concerned, Chair, Alexkor has no board. And we had never received substantive reasons that are surrounding retrenchments. And the adversarial effects of these retrenchments, Chairperson, had left the communities in conflict, and they have lost trust in government, they have lost trust in Alexkor, and they've lost trust in community leaders. At some point, even the president of the country, when he visited the area, he had committed that he would ensure that the matters of the Richtersveld community and of Alexkor would be dealt with through the necessary offices that he would deploy. And until today, Chair, all we are seeing is a down spiral from Alexkor, and that the conditions of the community members, the conditions of our workers are moving from bad to worse by day. The parents are watching their children hopelessly with nothing to do from the morning until sunset. The CEO of Alexkor acted as if he were appointed to the operations of the joint board. And according to the deed of settlement, Chairperson, and unanimous agreement, the CEO could not act and effect retrenchments on behalf of the PSJV. And the minister, upon his appointment, did not follow the due processes outlined in the deed of settlement and unanimous agreement. A declaratory order in the labor court was launched in defense of employment agreements as they are still in force and in fact. A state-owned enterprise, and the Alexkor RMC PSJV was established pursuant to a landmark and a groundbreaking land claim, which was granted to the Richtersveld community. The state, therefore, has numerous obligations in terms of the promotion of Administrative Justice Act 3 of 2000. One of those is the Constitution, the Mining Charter, the King 3. And with regards to MPRDA, Chair, the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act 28 of 2002 is the primary regulatory framework for the exploitation of mineral resources in South Africa. And this act provides for equitable access and sustainable development of the nation's mineral and petroleum resources. And the prospecting right is granted in terms of Section 17, Clause 1 of this act. The minister has the power to invite applications for prospecting rights in respect of any land by notice in the Government Gazette. A prospecting right is therefore valid for a specific period of time which may not exceed 5 years, and this right is valid for a specified period which may not exceed 30 years and becomes effective on the date on which the environmental management plan is approved. And looking at the Mining Charter, Chair, and as well as King 3, King 3 follows an inclusive approach to stakeholders, whereby the legitimate interest of stakeholders, which include the suppliers, customers, workers, regulators, environment, and as well as the community, are considered and recognized over and above solely the shareholders' interest in a manner which benefits the long-term sustainability of the entity, Chairperson. In the case of Alexkor, workers have been neglected and they don't appear anywhere in the model of what is happening and of Alexkor. And the Mining Charter recognizes the role of workers and provides for the establishment of the employee stock ownership plan, a share scheme which is beneficial to all workers in the mining industry. Around the shareholders' compact, Chairperson, the Department of Public Enterprise last had a share compact in 2018 and 2019 when the company had an effective board. And since the board were retired, an appointed administrator took over, and the department is yet to appoint a new board. There is no record of how community board representatives are appointed to the board, and the process to place a new governance structure is in place is not known. There is no record of board participant who represents the community except for 2 structures that were established after the deed of settlement. The Department of Public Enterprise appointed administrators shortly after they have retired the incompetent board. Now, on the way forward, Chairperson, the reason for Alexkor's decline over the last couple of years must be seen as an injustice directed to the community and the surrounding communities by government. And in our view, we strongly believe that the parliament thus far has failed to conduct its proper oversight in this particular SOE. The challenges that are surrounding Alexkor have been well published and on numerous reports being tabled in parliament, and audit findings are there, Comrade Chairperson. And to date, there had not been a single call to hold the board, the executive, and as well as the minister to account. The land claim concluded for the community was supposed to benefit the sustainability of the community, but the retrenchment undermined the land reform and as well as the transformational objectives. The portfolio committee must resolve these challenges in a manner where everybody is afforded an opportunity to present their side of the story while holding the minister and the board and the executive accountable. And should there be signs of maladministration, we are asking the Public Enterprise Portfolio Committee to ensure that if there are any signs of maladministration, which we believe are strongly evident, and all those that are responsible who have left the community and the workers in languish and poverty must be charged in line with the legislation and the applicable laws and in line with the court of law. Chairperson, that concludes our presentation as the National Union of Mine Workers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, NUM, Soso. And it's still, let us check if Solidarity is again back or came in yet. Is there any person representing Solidarity? Apparently, Solidarity is not responsive. They have not yet logged in, or they are not here. Honorable members, this is the report from Alexkor, and also a presentation from the National Union of Mine Workers. Can we engage the report? I will normally start with the members to participate, and I've got all your list here. It won't be necessary for anyone to put their hand up. We'll start with Dlamini. Honorable Dlamini.
Thanks, Chair. Corner. No, look, I want to comment on the submission by the representatives of Mine First. It would appear that there is no flow of information between what the mine is doing in terms of strategy and how to turn things around in the mine, and keeping the social partners, which are the unions, informed. Because now, as you would know, Chair, the interest would always be in the opposite ends. When the mine wants to make a profit, workers would want to keep their jobs and increase their salaries. So that relationship has to be managed at every turn. I don't think that's happening adequately right now. Maybe we need to find a way of synergizing how these things are going to work hand in hand. On the other hand, the mine is also talking about contracts that have been given to communities. I'm not too sure how many of those contracts were given to former employees as a way of maybe, when there's a Section 189 process, companies would want to reskill their employees or former or soon to be former employees so that they get other opportunities, even if it's outside their place of employment. I'm not too sure if that was considered. The union and the mine would then have to advise us on that in that regard. In terms of the turnaround strategy and the issue that is being raised of the non-existence of the board, again, it's a matter of communication. We're not too sure why there's no board, but for now, this is the situation, and our intervention should be able to balance the need to turn things around and making the mine work. I think I'll stop there for now, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Honorable Dlamini. Honorable Kachalia.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we have finally received, the annual report. This is in respect of a rich resource, a poor community, and a company which stumbles towards increasingly unsuccessful performance. I want to be blunt here because I think bluntness is required. It is run like a spaza shop. This is a damning report. We as a portfolio committee have been on oversight and we've seen it firsthand. This annual report is smoke and mirrors and a gloss on gross mismanagement and dereliction of duty that is meant to run a proper and fit organization that is responsible to community, contractors, and taxpayers. The purpose of an annual report is to present the company's financials and attendant efforts to mitigate and build on these. But if the numbers are unverifiable at best or cooked up at worst, then we are in deep trouble. The CEO was appointed on the 1st of December 2017, is on record as saying, I am pleased to report that Alexkor is on the path to financial recovery and future sustainability. Nothing could be further from the truth. My question, and I'm going to make a couple of comments afterwards, is what is the DPE and the shareholder going to do in the face of this untenable situation? The community owns the resource, a rich resource, and the mining rights, and needs to appoint a competent operational company that engages contractors to deliver on objectives that benefit the community and the state via royalties and taxes. This needs to be done. Now let us examine the only part of this annual report which is worth the paper that it is written on, in my opinion, and that is the report of the independent auditors. Let me quote to you. They say, there are material inconsistencies that cast significant doubt on the group's ability to continue as a going concern. They say that it has not provided cash flow forecasts and related documentation to support assumptions of the company as a going concern. They say it is unable to confirm by any other means that the company is a going concern. There are other issues, the environmental rehabilitation liability. This is a huge question which has huge implications. Then there is the plant, the property and equipment. The report says no adequate systems are in place to maintain records in the ledger that tally with the fixed asset register. They say that they couldn't verify inventories. They say that they couldn't verify the balance of cash and cash equivalents. They say that they're unable to confirm that there are any omissions in the contingent liability statement. They say that the company did not correctly prepare and disclose net cash flows. Cash flows from financing, they say, are incorrectly disclosed. It goes on to say that they couldn't obtain sufficient appropriate evidence for costs of sales due to the lack of proper record keeping and reconciliation. In terms of the report, the directors talk about operational excellence for Alexkor and Alexkor SOC Limited and Alexkor RMC JV. But the auditors find that they did not identify any material findings on the reliability and usefulness of the reported performance information to determine whether it was accurate, and they couldn't verify if the carats produced from land operations against targets. Now, annual financial statements, if they're not prepared in accordance with the prescribed financial reporting requirements, which is what the audit says, and supported by proper records as defined in the PFMA, of which this company is operating in direct contradiction of, and the PSJV, which is also doing the same, then we are in big, big trouble. This has to be remedied, and this has to be remedied now. And I want to hear from the shareholder what is to be done, because this is going nowhere fast. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kachalia. Honorable Mawatwe.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to Portfolio Committee members and Alexkor team. Chair, I'm just worried that there seems to be no room for improvement from Alexkor. And by the way, most of the things that were presented today is the things that were presented during our oversight visit a month ago. So there's nothing new really. But looking at the financials, the only good year that we had was 2017. And since then it's been going down and down. And yes, obviously the production directly impacts the revenue, but we're not being told what is being done to improve the situation. And that's where we're sitting. And two, I want to believe that the administrator was appointed to turn around the entity. And he was appointed because the board was then dissolved. But then there should have been a plan to reinstitute the board or to appoint new board, because the administrator was acting as an interim solution. So there should have been a plan from the department to appoint a new board. So maybe to the deputy minister, why is it taking so long to appoint the board? Because now you are conflicting the CEO. The CEO is now appointed the CEO as the sole director, and he just failed now the audit. The audit says there's lack of proper governance and oversight, and it's going to be the case again this year, because even now he's sitting with a board that's not correct. So what is the department doing about this PSJV board that's not correct? The CEO says there's no audit committee, purely because there's no board. So those are the two biggest issues for me, that there's no audit committee, there's no board. He's everything. He's the referee, the player, and the fan at the same time. So it's very problematic. There's no way that you're going to meet your governance issues. And then you say you've been awarded the license to market, sell, and beneficiate on the 27th of May, 2020. And I heard you saying you are negotiating with the department to get the building that was used before by that other mining company. So what is your plan? What's holding back? How far are the discussions and the negotiations with the department to get that building to enable you to beneficiate and to sell? And initially, Chair, I was for the idea that we should close the Johannesburg office completely. But when we were in Alexander Bay, then the CEO explained why it might not be practical to completely close it, but rather scale it down. And my issue would be, CEO, let's look at using government buildings as opposed to leasing. Go to ask the deputy minister to assist you to find a government building that is in good condition. There's lots of government buildings that are in good conditions that you can still use to sell. And by the way, I support your Kimberley strategy. But now, lastly, there's two things that are reported on the audit finding. The non-compliance with key laws and regulations. That's big, because you are non-compliant. you are behaving as if there's no laws and regulations in this country. You're breaching all of them. So what is your plan to be compliant with the laws and regulations? Number two, the weaknesses in financial controls. What are you doing about it? Pumzile was presenting here because that's the first thing. Is she the CFO? What is she? Is she appointed? And who, because this should be overseen by her office, the financial controls directly. So if you don't have a stable financial office, you're going to have these issues recurring over and over again. So how far is the appointment of the CFO? What is Pumzile's position? And what is the department saying about the absence of the CFO if the CFO is not yet appointed? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mawotwe. Can I get Honorable Malinga? It's not here. Honorable Kumede?
I am here, Chair, but I'm covered. I don't want to say anything. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Greetings to yourself and the members. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kumede?
Chair, good morning. Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. These are sad stories, but at the very same time, I think this is what we're looking forward to. My only worry, Chair, is when the truth is told, we are very quick to lambast without providing a kind of solution. You know, what's happening today is the organization has been taken inside out so that all of us, we are aware of what is happening. You know, let me start by commenting on some of the things that were said or presented by the representative of NUM. It's very sad and unfair, which unfortunately we have not been reported to, but we are aware that there is no board. However, what has happened is there were the appointments of non-executives. I think there were 4 aside, 4 from PSJV as well as 4 from Alexkor, so that they constitute the interim board. And that interim board was going to be joined by the CEO, then who was an overall presider, who's presiding over it. It's been unfortunate that it's not correcting. So it means decisions taken, in fact, are very flawed. I'm not aware, or I don't know what the department is doing or action that could be taken by the department in such decisions, that some of them have in fact been implemented. Yes, Chair, I share the same view that Dlamini has echoed, Honorable Dlamini, that there will always be that contestation between the management of the workers demanding their rights, and perhaps management want to increase the kind of production and the revenue. But at times it's paining that when workers are retrenched. You know, the report I got is 150 of the workers were retrenched. And there is as well a concern from the union rep that even the board representatives, nothing seemed to be coming from the community itself. So it means there are many other issues, because Alexkor on that other side is playing an oversight on a PSJV, but that implicates the department, that perhaps the proper interventions are to be done. However, that the report says that is for cost cutting, because the department flags it, that because of that, at least they had a positive move when they retrenched some of the workers. There was a little bit of stability, which then impacted negatively on the side of the workers. Chair, let me say then, let me try and move. There are times, because you will remember that the records are saying the CPA was non-functioning. That's one of the reasons that the administration was in fact put in place with an intervention of the minister, which at the time we will say it was okay. The idea of the appointment of a CEO after the term of 6 months lapsed, the CEO, who in fact was a director as well as the accounting officer, was as well a good move in a sense. But I have this, even the interim board, I want to believe that it was in good faith and a very good notion that in the interim, you'll have a working structure. But what is unfortunate, these two people or whatever, in my view, is that they were overburdened. You cannot take an organization that is in a kind of in tatters. I'm saying, SPJV, for those that are from the struggle, they will understand, operates like an ordinary civic organization. It's just taking a person from the street, and then you say that that person come and work. I don't think there was any good assessment that was done of the people that constitute some of the structures. So that is the weakness. I think all the reports that are given by the external auditor, you compare what the external auditor says and the reports that you are getting, it's true that there is nothing that in fact was happening. Right. But I want to suggest that, because what's more important is that we need to have time frames here. I think the question that was asked is very relevant, that after the administration as well as the interim, whether CEO, the board, what are we doing? Why were we seated instead of continuing with the program, launch the board, put all the structures? How can you have a structure that is without the audit committee, a risk committee? Without an audit committee and a risk committee, of course, when it comes to monies, you will never get the money. So the proper management of the monies, in fact, won't be appropriate. So all what I'm saying, Chair, is let's finalize the restructuring. I think perhaps that will help us strengthen the capacity. Put in place that audit committee. At least I don't know, it's shown that there is no regular spending. no borrowings, which in fact it's a good sign. I'm not sure why is that. Because it becomes impossible for an organization that operates like this and it has no irregular and no borrowings apart from the prior year, which was something like 26 million. Chair, I want to suggest that in fact, it looks as if they need a little bit of a strategy, because when the weather is bad, the carrots were low because the weather was bad, and that shown a declining spiral, in a sense that there was no work, there was nothing. I wanted to find out what happened with the 49% share. But at the end of the day, you find that the dividend was just nil. So no one, in fact, got something that made perhaps those people benefit. Some other things, Chair, that we are to benefit from is the expansion of operations to Dubai, Hong Kong, etc. That will be a very positive move. And what then we need to finalize is the issue of license and the permits. What needs to be done as well, because there is a license that in fact it's valid until 2015. So I think then that is to be capitalized on it. The diamond. They call it's a diamond beneficiation license as well as diamond dealer's license. So those are in operation. I think it gives perhaps the company a right then to move, so that at least there are some benefits in that sense. Chair, I'll be happy if at the end of the day as a committee, if ever we do have that authority, we instruct, if it means instructing via the DPE, that let us be given the time frame. According to this one, it says the board was going to, or the restructuring was going to have been completed in 2021. I want to believe if we talk the 2021, it's already gone. If I'm not mistaken. So, Chair, I think let's make sure that we get the time frames in all these things that are doing, and you are given a program that we are in a position to monitor, and then things are happening right. Let me stop there, Chair. Otherwise, I will be interested to know the lifespan of the mining as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kumed. I understand. Honorable Clerk, are you in?
Thank you, Chairperson. I had problems this morning for the first half an hour with my signals going down, but I've been on, since about 10:30 and been able to participate. There's just a couple of questions I would ask. I must say that this financial report is an absolutely devastating report. And, I think Alexkor is heading to the same disaster Denali's as at this current stage. I would like to know, why was IMOSA not able to produce? For what reason was that? Then in terms of the Richterveld community, I would like to know if the administrator has finalized its work, because the last time when the Richtersveld community came to Parliament, this was discussed at our committee. What has the administrator done? Has he put in plans in order for this the shareholders of the community to go forward with what the court has ruled in terms of that court ruling? Please can we have the outcome of that? And I'd also like to know who the administrators were and what was the cost factor in terms of the business he had to conduct. I also want to know why the PSJV does not conform to the PFMA, and why is this happening, and why has Alexkor not done its due diligence, and when will this happen? Then I'd like to know how many suppliers have not been paid within 30 days, and what does this amount to? You know, they said one of the issues that burden Alexkor in terms of their finances is their weak financial controls. And then we were told in the presentation that remedial plans were going to be put in place. Well, Chairperson, that's not good enough. Can we please know what those remedial plans are, and what would the outcome be once those remedial plans have been put in place? And also, you know, what is Alexkor going to do in order to restructure itself to make it a viable concern again? I'd also like to know how many fraud and corruption cases have been opened, what is the status quo of those cases, and what did those cases amount to? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Clark. I see hands there. I will just ask those members to please put their hands down. I am a very fair chair. I will give them. I know we all have to speak here. Therefore, they must not worry about putting their hands up.
Chair, can I plead for your indulgence, Chair?
Yeah, you will come immediately after I've finished all these hands, Deputy Minister.
Oh, all right. No, I wanted before. I was not going to be responding, Chair. It was more some attempt at making a proposal, but fine. I can wait until then.
Okay. Honorable Shabalala.
Thank you so much, Chair. Let me greet everybody in the meeting and excuse my audio. I think I might be having a bad bandwidth. And Chair, if you can hear me, or you please, if you can just indicate so you can cut me, then I will have to log in with another gadget. But if I'm audible, you're comfortable, I will then continue, Chair. Am I audible to you? Can I just get confirmation?
We hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let me greet everybody in the meeting, members of Parliament, the Deputy Minister is always here, but also the Alexkor team led by the CEO, Mr. Lemogang. Chair, let me borrow the words of the Minister yesterday when he was delivering his speech on the Alexkor, and this is what the Minister said, that for the short to medium term, the focus for Alexkor is to turn around the diamond operations and ensure that both Alexkor and the joint venture are financially sustainable. Now, having had borrowed that, the question I think we ought to be asking ourselves is that, is there a business here as the state-owned company for us to save or for us to salvage? And I would like to think the answer is yes, taking from our own oversight as members that we did conduct in Alexkor. Now, I'm reluctant to really agree with my other colleague who is Honorable Mautwe, but I would like to think today really Honorable Mautwe has covered large points that I wanted clarity on. So I want to confer with the utterances of Honorable Mautwe, particularly around the issues of the relocation and the issue of the office, especially coming to the diamond sales, as it has been reported around moving the sales and marketing to be in Kimberley. Perhaps the question I want to ask from the CFO or CEO rather, that I might have missed, is whether how much are we going to be expected to pay for that relocation? What would be the loss, or if not, what will be incurred from our own coffers? And do we have budget for such an establishment in Kimberley? And also, when will this be? Issues of timelines are very important. Insofar as downscaling the offices of Pretoria, if not Joburg, I think I will just leave it at that one. When is the lease coming to an end? Now, and comparing that part as well around, if we can get an explanation exactly how much we are spending in the offices of Alexkor. And I would remember something around 160K per month. Is that still the case? So that when we are being practical, Honorable Kachalia specifically, we need to be practical to issues that we're facing, and we should be able to provide a solution together with the department. Now, Honorable really Gumete really went to town for myself, really, on serious matters, be it of checks and balances around the issues of financials. To say the issue of, I think, internal auditors. Do we have that process in place to have internal auditors on site so that when we present a financial report, we should be able to also give our checks and balances from our side so that we don't appear like we're throwing our hands in the air. This is the problem and that's it. Now, there's been issues around the financial statements and, of course, the cash flow management systems that has been reported that are more a challenge, and auditing firms not conducting an audit per the PFMA. I think that question also has came up. I would want to get a thorough sense around that. There has been, Deputy Minister, to yourself, the issue around the business model, perhaps the revision of the business model. How is it going, and when are we likely to have that? Then, so that it can address this issue around what members are talking about when they say the CFO is the CEO is the board. I would like to think, honorable members, we need to be fair to ourselves and the process as well, that the board was there and we were there in that term, and the board was dissolved for particular reasons, and it couldn't do its job. Then there was that issue around the CEC, is it the CFO, if I'm not wrong, that took us to court. How far is that process? Then there was the issue of the administrator that was put in Alexkor, and now they've done their work. And the question becomes, did we get value for money for that? Now, it cannot be that we're sitting here and we want perhaps to cast the blame onto the current CEO, almost as if it's he's doing that. He is acting in all this position. He is the board, and there's a complaint around that, almost as if he's doing. The question is, what is the plan around the department to turn that situation around, to mitigate it? And I would like to think through this business model. It should come thorough to ourselves, the restructuring part of it, but also we need to be fair enough to speak about the Companies Act. How does it employs and enjoys if those processes around the boards, administrators, and this other failing senior managers, what then should happen in the interim? Because you can't leave the business not having a leader or somebody who deals with issues of governance and leadership. So for myself, really, under this circumstance, I want to really applaud the CEO at this point to keep this ship afloat and continue to do all this work with his team as well that is working on. I think it's only fair that we need to acknowledge that as much as we are raising that this issue is posing a bit of challenges around the issue of the structure. Now, there has been some level of, in the report, that speaks about the security. If you remember, we are having a report. It's unfortunate that we're clouding a chairperson with everything else. But here we are meant to do with the issue of the financial report, rather financial statements as well of this business. And that's what we also have to. But I want to throw this matter around security, because when we at the oversight, the issues of security was there, and we would have seen issues of illegal mining if we can get perhaps what is the interim solution to that illegal mining in terms of progress from the CEO, what has been the reinforcement around the ground, and also this issue about application for exemption, to allow these issues of artisanal mining and so forth and so on. So if you can just give us the breakdown, because it was reported that we are spending, if I'm not wrong and correct me, around $1 billion just on issues of security. Now I'm concerned about that, so that the next financial year we don't have such issues that we abruptly allocate money. We must just, because it's a sporadic attack when we speak about illegal mining. It's an illegal act, but for us to appropriate and take money, it then becomes, it deals with our book, with our balance sheet from where we are. They also on the security, the dismissal of employees. I want to know around the issues of corruption and theft. What has been the progress up to thus far? And that matter of reduce the historical rehabilitation, that amounting to 54 million. I want to know how far we are around that. On the finances as well, the debt reduction, you noted the debt reduction from 105 million to 55 million. That's also a success that for us, we need to acknowledge as members, and the issue of unaudited net profit as well. And Honorable Clark speaks about, and I like what she says, that we would have noted that we have not been rather looking to the coffers to seek financial relief from government at this point, and something for us to need to acknowledge. All I'm trying to say, Chairperson, from where we are, Alexkor, given the right processes, the right restructuring, I think that we can speak a better language moving forward. For now, we're doing with historical matters that we have from the last financial year, and that's what we are looking at this point. And I think that we need to be fair to the process. Lastly, on the Chairperson, second last rather, the purposes of, I think, the issue of the union. We can only say we've heard the union and we appreciate their presentation such that they couldn't make it when we were in oversight. However, that report of oversight, given what they would have sponsored in this meeting, I think it's something that needs to be found expression in that oversight report, so that we avoid the situation where we get into the mediation almost as, but rather let's appreciate the listening and the issues that has been raised. Let's allocate it to that type of a process and procedure, so that way as Parliament we are able to come up with a report, because then we'll
Honorable Shabalala, you just disappeared, and but it's fine. You have covered a lot of issues.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Not to interrupt you. She's just joined, I think, from the other gadget, so she's back online, Chair.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Chair. I wouldn't know where was I missed really. I'll just go to my second last point that I was raising around issues of procedure on how we need to deal with.
Yeah, you spoken about that one in relation to the union.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let me just raise my last point. Points around what is it that we need to also acknowledge, Chair, on when it comes to the Alexkor on the presentation. And I think that's something that we need to just to get the questions on the issue of PSJV, whether has there been a process where they submitted, a VAT or pay returns on payments timelessly, if we can just get an indication around that, so that we're able to gauge where they are. And PSJV on the report would have reported an unaudited net profit of 23.4 million for financial year 2021, and the net loss of 190.5 million loss in 2020. And of course, it's the 3.5 million loss in financial year of 2019. So I want to know, has it been able to pay its trade creditors in full to maintain this healthy 30-day payment for the last 30 days? CEO, our concern last time was the issue of the Black, rather our demographics, our people, and beneficiation and giving the business. We met with the other community. We want to know, are there any plans in this restructuring that will be able to speak that to that in the immediate, in the foreseeable future? Let me leave it at that, Chairperson. I thank you so much for your indulgence.
Thank you. Honorable members, before I give to the Deputy Minister and the CEO respond to a long list of issues, but I just want to say I sometimes have doubts if we follow properly the processes that are currently unfolding at Alexkor as members of Parliament who have a responsibility to play our oversight work. Perhaps our political position tend to blindfold us to grasp issues as they unfold or as they reported, or perhaps we forget when we come to other meeting what was presented in the previous meeting. And now we always behave as if we are surprised by information that we continuously getting. It has been explained from the financial report that the problem of qualified our audit outcomes come from 2017. I don't think in our engagement we consider that important fact. Secondly, on the issue of the board, I think Honorable Shabalala has alluded to that fact. And it's important for us in our engagement to appreciate that reality. Having listened to Soso, who was making presentation on behalf of the NUM, it comes clear, as Honorable Dlamini, including Kumede, indicated that there is a poor working relationship between Alexkor management and the organized labor. And I think as a committee, we have to instruct the CEO and his team to have a session to mediate, to engage and properly inform each other in terms of processes and what is taking place, and update the labor, the organized labor in relation to what is unfolding at the union. It's very embarrassing to hear the union's presentation showing a very, 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 very poor understanding of what is happening, even not updated on issues that are taking place currently at Alexkor. And in their presentation, there's no appreciation at all of those. And that's precisely because the management is not taking the organized labor into consideration. And it's correct when he has mentioned that according to labor charter, there should be a recognition of the organized labor in any entity. It's worse when the entity is a state-owned entity. I will understand if we have got those problems of relationship in a private mining company owned by some Tivet or whoever mine owner there. But in this instance, this entity is a state-owned entity. Therefore, if the mining charter cannot properly present, reflected on the working relationship and the kind of engagement in this one, how do you expect, as custodian of the same charter, we are doing? I want to appeal to the next session that we will have. We will need a report as to how far is this kind of a problem is resolved by Alexkor. There's no way that Alexkor can have hostile form of relationship with the organized labor. We have to get that kind of information. We have been consistently been informed as to what is the delay in the process of paying PSJV their dividends. And I think as members of this portfolio committee who has been informed since we came as Sixth Parliament and who have been participating in dealing with this particular matter, at least we must not, like when we respond to it as if it's going to be reported for the first time. There are, of course, constraints that also even involve other departments that are not necessary. There are rural development, which is also a role player in this instance, and the others, therefore, including the mineral resource and everyone. Therefore, until those issues are resolved, we can be in a position to understand what is taking place. Therefore, as a committee, let's not as if we are hearing or we are shocked by that particular information. All what we need to call for fast tracking of that process so that those people can get what belongs to them. Deputy Minister, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you very much to the honorable colleagues as well as the stakeholder representatives who have expressed themselves here. Chair, when I raised my hand, I wanted to make a suggestion, but I think towards the end, you also were referring to this. In a sense, to say, since the committee had that outreach program, the visit to the mine, as well as having meetings with different stakeholders that are affected in the operations or lack of operations in the mine. Today, it is labor that is also making its submission. That it could be, or it would be ideal, Chair, that's the proposition, that all of that could be consolidated into a report that would also consist of the findings and recommendations of the committee itself now, because between the different stakeholders, the entity itself, DPE, there may well be conflicting accounts of what is happening. But at a point, the committee should be able to consolidate through distilling what is fact from all that which is said, and then have a report of the committee that is adopted by the committee, that has its findings and recommendations, that then serves as one of the other instruments to strengthen oversight and accountability. I think for as long as we get into it in this way, and I think it could best be served if it could be done like that. It's just a thought. In fact, I think it should be like that. Maybe the sooner we get there, the better, so that even the other stakeholders who have made their submissions can have a sense of comfort that our submissions were indeed recorded, accounted for, but also they were responded to in this fashion. And this is what we can look up to going forward, so that even the representatives of labor today, without pretending that there shall be a response today to their submission, it should be that it is consolidated and be dealt with as we go forward. That's what I wanted to make a distinction. And then, Chair, it be the issues to do with the annual report as has been presented, which is a separate matter altogether, even though related. I would really like to make the following comments, and then I think from the department as well, the CEO largely initially the department may add. I just want to make a few other points, perhaps just which have been said before, which is more, again, just to illustrate some of the difficulties that have to be dealt with. It is true that the Richtersveld community, with the restoration of their land rights, the mineral rights in the land there, were indeed given back, restored to the community. But the mining operations are taking place both on land in which the mineral rights on land are in the hands of the community by the restoration. But the marine right is what is with Alexkor. It is not with the community. So whatever is happening in the marine environment, the right to mine the marine environment was, and that mining license remains with Alexkor. It's perhaps that which also serves to bring both together in the PSJV. Hence, you will find that it's not only the land parcels or the land portion that is mine, it's also the marine side that is. I just thought I need to make that again a point across to try and add more light to this. And then yes, again, I think to concede that the minister, upon dissolving the board in Alexkor, the appointment of the administrator, we should by now have had a board appointed in place. That process is almost at the doorstep of the minister, in that the memo with the recommendations is en route to the office of the minister already. I do anticipate that in a week or so, the board portion of Alexkor, because this is what was very glaring as we had the AGM, that the continued absence of the board does create conditions, as noted in the audit, that are not sound in terms of good governance and accountability in terms of that. Yes, again, in terms of the direction that we're taking in respect of the entity, the Honorable Committee will be reminded that with the work of the administrator having come to an end, we brought forward a process in which we were interrogating what options do we have in respect of Alexkor, given the fact that it was clear that the fiscus was no longer in a position to sustain some of our entities, in the sense that there couldn't be further allocations made. So very clearly, these entities had to live on their own by far, meaning which we had to look at the operations, look at how best we live within the means that are available. We came with options. We had a preferred option that included engaging the Department of Mineral Resources with a view to consolidating the mineral rights and interests that were within the state. And with that, we thought that it could then be able to, there could be the possibility of cross-subsidization where these interests would have been consolidated into one. That process is still underway between the two departments. The ministers of the two departments are engaging. It somewhat caused a little bit of delay, but we have since accelerated because with the interventions made in the operations, the stabilization of the board should see us having a better operating environment going forward, which is what the CEO was referring to when he was talking to the prospects going forward, the restructuring that has taken place in the movement of some of the critical staff from Johannesburg to be in the area in which the theater of operations are taking place. So having said that, Chair, Lemogang may then speak to the details in terms of some of the questions that were very direct. I was merely dealing with the broad outlook we have in respect of this. Melanchthon, as well as Jackie from head office, after the CEO may add if there are any things to be added. Thank you very much, Chair. With your permission, then the CEO can come.
Sure.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I just take you on, first let me address the union relationship with Alexkor. And again, the relationship had been sour because of the historical reasons. There were retrenchments that were done before my time. The people were not paid and the union were not consulted as it was supposed to be. That happened, and I cannot be most apologetic for that behavior that happened before my time. But Chair, last year, February, we saw some of the SOEs not being able to pay salaries, some of the SOEs retrenching people. We were on the upward before March last year. We actually started paying off that 150 million debt that Honorable Chabalala was talking about until when the COVID pandemic came in. But having said that, what we've also done as Alexkor, without asking money from the fiscals, we've never skipped the month of paying people salary. Even when we started engaging in the second phase of retrenchment, we were with the union. I made sure that we were consulting on a week-by-week basis because we were not producing, Chair. And all the money that was recovered from the previous quarters were actually paying people salaries for not coming to it. It might not be seen as a great achievement, but Alexkor, as one of the few SOEs, has never skipped salary payments. And I think knowing where we are with the other SOCs, for me, it was a greatest achievement. We've also went back and paid the retrenchees who were not paid in 2018 and 2019, and we put them in their medical aids until December last year. Because when they were not paid, some of them suffered, obviously, post-traumatic stresses and so on and so on. But as far as I'm aware, the current union relationship with the mine has improved. And hence I'm saying we are, and I heard the comments from Tate Dlamini, Ms. Chabalala and so on. I am of the view that we have improved the relationship. We have paid each and every person who was retrenched. Some of them were without money for 18 months, but we've dealt with that. And then just to take on what Honorable Marta said, the office in Johannesburg, yes, is the lease, and I'm going to answer it in conjunction with Meshavala. The KIJA process has been ongoing. There's a lease agreement that is being put on the table by government to government, whereby will be the minimum will be paying is 1,000 rand per month, which obviously equates to 12,000 per annum, compared to what we're paying in Johannesburg at 160 per month. And then in Johannesburg, we are talking to State Diamond Trader to share the office space with them. Currently, we're doing our storage and voltage with them, and we're paying around 3,000 per month. So if you put in both together, it's 4,000 times 12, it will give you 50,000 per annum for the rental space for the operations. At the mine, the space is there, it's free. So that's basically that. Another important issue that was asked was about the plans, the life of mine, and so on and so on. The geology on the marine, Chair, is advanced. We know that we're looking at around 10 to 20 years from shallow to deep ends. On the land, what we've actually done historically, we failed to go deeper and explore below 5 meters. So what we're now currently doing, as I've mentioned before, self-funding, we are looking at a section and then we go deeper and then we start exploring. But all in all, we know that we've got more than 15 years on the land. So how are we gonna do that? The plan is simple. Ourselves and DMR have identified a place called Obib. In that place, we want to allocate it to what I call small-scale miners, artisanal miners. Some people call it zamazamas. So as I'm talking to you currently, there's a meeting tomorrow with the police and the community that we call in small-scale miners and the DMR, so that we can formalize this whole process. Because what is more important for Alexkor is we still need to operate within the Mine Health and Safety Act. As far as DMR is going to give us exemption, it should be known that there will be an oversight. And also we must empower those people by giving them offtake agreements and security so that nothing malicious can happen in that regard. There was the question about what is currently happening with financial management. Please know that this annual report is for the past financial year. So since financial year, we have actually tightened up most of the cash flow management has vastly improved. One of the suppliers that were not paid, as Honorable Clark was asked, was SARS and ESCOM, but we have since sat around with the two institutions and came out with a payment plan. And as alluded, that it started at minus 150. We are now sitting at minus 40 million, and we're hoping that in the next 6 months, all the creditors will be settled. Now, another question that was asked by Ms. Lark was that, are there any cases open for any wrongdoing that was done? Yes, we've taken the cases to the Hawks in the region, and the only thing we can do is to report it, and then the Hawks takes it and start doing what they're supposed to do. So as far as we're concerned, those cases are in the legal system. They were reported, you've got the case numbers and so on and so on. The other one that was mentioned was similar to that one, to say the security issues and the corruption. What we did also when we got here, we've increased security in the key areas. And this process started last year, December. And I'm proud to say ever since we did that, 6 or 7 people were fired in the diamond sorting area, which is where the diamonds are recovered. And all because we've improved in security. Once we started coming back, we increased the security presence. We hired more Rechtervelders or more people from the community with the security experience. And some of them are very key in the sense that they know most of the guys who are selling the stuff in the community. And thanks to that initiative that we've got a small scale entrepreneur who's running our security on the basis from Rechterveld into September Securities. It has helped us a lot. And it shows you if we work with our community members, we can achieve a lot. The other issue that was raised was the dividends and the loans. It is prescribed in our deed of settlement that until we pay the government the initial cost of capital, which was 200 million, no loans, no dividends or loans can be taken up. So far we have paid 19 million rands. We still have 181 million rands to go. And that's why you will never see dividends going to any shareholder until we finish paying the National Treasury. Be that as it may, the CPA also has been irregular in its composure because they were also supposed to pay for their land mining guarantees and so on. At this point in time, Alexkor is taking care of all those things that directors from mining companies are supposed to be doing. And hopefully when the CPA is constituted, we can recover that money and then we can start doing better things with it. Another thing that we really have to mention is that somebody was asking about the cost of Alexkor. Alexkor is currently paying for electricity at the mine, electricity at the villages, water at the mine, water that is going to Alexander Bay, and water that is going to Port Nolloth and the communities. So in the last week, the municipality and Eskom and NERSA have started accelerating the processes of taking over electricity. By look of things, from 1st of July, we will only be paying the electricity and water used at the mine. And thanks to the local municipality coming to the party and the regional and the Office of the Premier for support. So you will see the cost structure. It will shrink, not because we've retrenched, but because the costs that were carried by Alexkor will be now borne by the municipality, and the community will pay directly the electricity through the account that will be set up by Eskom and so on. So that is why, if you look at the numbers and the money that is allocated to government expenditure is still sitting at where it's sitting, because we haven't actually transferred the whole responsibility to the municipality. Chair, without further ado, I know there was issues that were raised on the audit findings, but I can safely say ever since we appointed our GM, interim GM finance, which is the question that was asked by Mema, is Ms. Pumzile Mtombe. We have actually covered most of the issues that were raised, and we're hopeful that in this financial year, our audit results will be far better than last year. And the reason why the annual report was submitted late is because for previous years, PSJV was not audited under PFMA. We changed that last year and started auditing PSJV under PFMA. And that's why you now see a lot of these audit findings coming out. We needed to do that so that when we go ahead on the next years, at least we know we've got systems in place that can put controls and measures going forward. And basically what is now going to happen is Alexkor and PSJV are all going to be audited under PFMA. And that is being happened. Alexkor has been obviously audited under PFMA, but PSJV wasn't until we started doing it last year. Chair, I think I've covered most of the issues. The lease in Johannesburg is ending in August 2020, so we should be out of that office by 1st of September. I remember that was asked as well. So I think I've covered most of the things except the governance one, Chair. The governance ones, I leave them to the department as ministers of union. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Honorable Dlamini, you wanted a second bite? Honorable Dlamini?
Old hand.
Thanks, Chair. I think we need to note that the bulk of the problems of the 8 years outcome stems from lack of the existence of the board. Now we need to take some responsibility in that type of a situation. I'm happy the Deputy Minister is saying that process is being finalized. Because even the committees that you want to complain about should be the product of the board. Outside of the board, you cannot have these committees. It then begs us to take some responsibility in the outcomes of the AG, in terms of there being not a board, whether in our oversight responsibility or otherwise. We should have ensured that there's a board by a certain time. Can we then fix that type of thing? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable. Soso, do you want to come in? Soso from NUM.
Yeah, Chairs, apologies. I'm having serious difficulties with the network and connection. So I'm on and off, Chair, but I hear you calling my name now.
Okay, just remove your picture and then speak without a picture. Perhaps it's going to improve. Soso.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yeah, speak. Soso, you muted yourself. If you can unmute yourself, perhaps we can hear you. That's better. Unmute yourself.
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, Chair, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, no, I was saying I lost connection, Chair, for a moment there. So I'm not sure if there was a question for me. I'm having a unstable network.
No, there was no question. We wanted to check if you want to say something before we continue with other issues.
Oh, no, Chair, I do want to say something. In the main is thanking you for the opportunity that you have provided us to come and present. And we're truly hopeful that this presentation is not going to go in vain, but will be used in making history and turning around things for the community of Richtersveld and as well as for our members, and that true and visionary leadership will be instituted at Alexkor, and people who have the best interest of the country and our state-owned enterprises will be put at the helm of this state-owned enterprise. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Soso. Thank you on behalf of the committee. We thank you for making your voice heard, and we hope that we will be in a position to make follow-up and resolve some of
the PFMA. Many of these questions would not be necessary if the PSJV complied with the PFMA and provided Parliament with proper quarterly and annual reports. This was not done, and everything gets hidden under a veil of secrecy by refusing to recognize the applicability of the PFMA. If this gets implemented as is being said that it would, I have no doubt that many more skeletons will emerge. We need this with haste. And if necessary, the Hawks must be called into this. Thank you.
Honorable members, you bring hands one by one. I think, okay. Honorable Clerk, you have removed your hand, yeah?
Thank you, Chairperson. I was covered by Member Kachalia.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Shabalala?
Chairperson, thank you. Network is really bad today, but just to say, Chair, I wanted just to check that, you know, in the presentation it was noticed that obviously production did increase after the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's not after. We're in the third wave now. I want to know how is Alexkor going to achieve better recoveries due to this production, especially on the land, COFA, dam and marine operations. We're in the third wave now, and there's that issue of the land, of winter, and obviously you won't be able to do what do you call them, diamonds. So how are we going to be able to be float? How are we going to float in this? Do we have a plan around that? Chair, it's unfortunate what Honorable Kachalia is bringing now. It's like, you know, wanting to be really popular, Zondo Commission, whistleblower. We're dealing with financial reports. Can we do that? Firstly, he tells us it's a spaza shop. Next thing he tells us it's going nowhere very fast. You are going nowhere very slowly, Chair. Seriously, Kachalia is taking us back. No. Thanks.
Honorable Gumede.
Chair, thank you. I know at times it's the comments of others are at times very much tricking or annoying. But if we may try and control our tempers, that will be good. But at times it's still annoying. Chair, I wanted to say one. I wanted to support the DM's contribution. That let's compile a composite report with some relevant, perhaps recommendations, and then be circulated among stakeholders that we met with when we had an oversight. That one I agree fully. Chair, wish to say as well, so that we don't lose these opportunities. Whoever is responsible, let's say all these questions we have asked, they are in a sense compiled. But I'm looking at more especially the questions that may be progressive, structural, putting in or punching in holes of all these other things that are in fact outstanding. I fully agree with the assertion from Honorable Shabalala that looking at Alexkor and the PSJV, that can be fixed. Let us not be negative about all these things. Let's put the systems in place. Do our work, as you have said, Chair, the oversight, with the assistance, or we assist the department as well, so that at least we know that today, this is what we have achieved. We will go away now not having a very clear program between you, Chair, perhaps, and Honorable Shabalala. Let's get these programs clear with the time frames so that we know what's happening when, so that when they come back again, they are accountable on something that we very much know. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Gumede. Deputy Principal, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I would really, I think I just want to react to Honorable Kachalia. Perhaps we could be blamed for not beating our own drums in this instance, because the cancellation of the SSI contract is the product of the interventions that we led there. Similarly, that arising out of that, the entity, the Alexkor, can now directly sell diamonds, is licensed to do so. It is because of that intervention. And that a number, starting with the board, some of the people who were employees there, the CEO and other directors that were there, that they are no longer there, was the product of the implementation of that Gobodo report. Perhaps we're saying less of those achievements because we're looking at the larger problem still ahead of us. The administrator was appointed for a period of 6 months there. And as far as I can remember, even the dispute that arose sometime towards the end of his tenure there, it was over some of the expected milestones that were not met. However, that administrator was never appointed to anything to the order of 17 million. I think if I heard Honorable Kachala well saying the administrator got paid 17 million, that's definitely not so. There is nothing like that. That administrator was appointed, I think the figure around which his emoluments were to come from was around 800,000. 17 million is the first time I hear about it. Perhaps we may want to ask officials to get closer to Honorable Kacharya so that we compare notes. I don't know where he gets that information from, but definitely nothing of that sort. I really thought I need to say that here so that if there's anything further Honorable Kacharya would want to raise, perhaps we could then take it in terms of where he relied from to derive that kind of statement. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. CEO, do you want to answer some of the questions?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I need to add. The SI matter is in the hands of the Hawks, as Deputy Minister alluded. So I'm not at liberty to give details about those criminal cases, but I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, the department. We thank you very much for your presence and the providing guidance to this committee. The Alexkor team led by the CEO, we appreciated this positive step of presenting your annual report to us. This is very important for us. To me, that alone is an indication of an improvement and a progress in that entity. We really appreciate that step forward. We also wish to indicate that some of the issues that have been raised, particularly in relation to the organized labor, you CEO provides that leadership and you try to bring them on board and understand the issues and the processes where you are currently. And also we take into consideration, Deputy Minister, the issue raised about recording all those matters that we raise so that we can be in a position also to guide the committee in terms of following up on issues that are outstanding and that have been achieved and so forth. Therefore, we really appreciate your guidance in that regard. Honorable members, we also thank you, the organized labor, for participating and providing that input to us. To me, that's very important. And it will help us also to not just observe the issues and be critical, but it also helps us to input and improve the quality of the leadership there, and also sort of helping them to improve the relationship between the employer and the employee kind of relationship. Therefore,
Chair,
honorable members,
Chair,
thank you.
point of information, Chair. Point of information.
No. Thank you so much.
I have a point of information.
I
have a point of information, Chair, that in regard to the 17 million, it is in the PMG summary, and I suggest that the Deputy Minister looks at that. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Kacharya, I've given you a time to also have a second bite, and if we can allow that situation, we'll end up not finishing our meetings. When somebody...
But Chair, Kacharya must not mislead Parliament. He must not mislead Parliament.
Honorable Shwalala, if we will allow members to react to each other and respond, if you have anything to do, you can write it down and forward, and you do exactly what the Deputy Minister asked you to do. It will be very important. Just write down, I got this from this, without necessarily interrupting the proceedings of the portfolio committee meeting. On those bases, honorable members, the committee is adjourned. Thank you so much.
Chairperson, we don't have minutes today.
No, we'll do minutes when the Secretary of the Portfolio Committee is present, Honorable Shabalala. We wouldn't like to have it. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Long live the chair. Achalia, you must attend anger management. You need help, my friend.